will.
I see by your gravestone you are only 19 when you joined the Great Fallen in 1916.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just posted that song from the Wolfe Tones about 8 o'clock if you want to listen to the whole thing. It's really spectacular. The Wolfe Tones are an Irish kind of folk group I never knew until I met Maz. But wow, what I don't know about World War I is vast and embarrassing. I know that Archduke Ferdinand was killed in Sarajevo, and then we always learned that about a day and a half before the school year was over, and then I never learned anything else. And it's embarrassing. So happy Veterans Day. If you are watching this and have served, thank you so much for your service. We thank my brother Evan, who served in the Navy for a number of years and a couple of tours of active duty. My grandpa Mike Del Val. I don't have many military people in my family. Do you?
No.
Oh, and Quinn's dad Jake. Quinn's dad Jake, who's made an entire career out of the military. So thank you for your service. Wow. It's incredible. So I came across this today from the History Channel, and I'm just going to read you the whole thing because I think it's really powerful, and I didn't honestly know very much about it. So it's the World War I origins of the poppy as a remembrance symbol. The Remembrance Day symbolism of the poppy started with a poem written by a World War I brigade surgeon who was struck by the sight of the red flowers growing on a ravaged battlefield. From 1914 to 1918, World War II took a greater human toll than any previous conflict, with some 8.5 million soldiers dead of battlefield injuries or disease. The Great War, as it was then known, also ravaged the landscape of Western Europe, where most of the fiercest fighting took place. From the devastated landscape of the battlefields, the red poppy would grow, and thanks to a famous poem, became a powerful symbol of remembrance. Across northern France and Flanders, northern Belgium, the brutal clashes between Allied and Central Powers soldiers tore up fields and forests, tearing up trees and plants and wreaking havoc on the soil beneath. But in the warm early spring of 1915, bright red flowers began peeking through the battle-scarred land. Papaver something Latin, known variously as the Flanders poppy, corn poppy, red poppy, and corn rose. As Chris McNabb, author of the Book of the Poppy, wrote in an excerpt published in The Independent, the brilliantly colored flower is actually classified as a weed, which makes sense given its tenacious nature. Your mother has yellow poppies at her house. She's routinely digging out, so they must be quite hardy. Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian who served as a brigade surgeon for an Allied artillery unit, spotted a cluster of poppies that spring, shortly after the Second Battle of... Is that Ypres?
Yes.
Okay. McCrae tended to the wounded and got a first-hand look at the carnage of that clash, in which the Germans unleashed lethal chlorine gas for the first time in the war. Some 87,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing in the battle, as well as 37,000 on the German side. A friend of McCrae's, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer, was among the dead. Struck by the sight of bright red blooms on broken ground, McCrae wrote a poem, In Flanders Field, in which he channeled the voice of the fallen soldiers buried under those hardy poppies. Published in Punch magazine in late 1915, the poem would be used at countless memorial ceremonies and became one of the most famous works of art to emerge from the Great War. Its fame had spread far and wide by the time McCrae himself died from pneumonia and meningitis in January of 1918. Across the Atlantic, a woman named Moina Michael read In Flanders Field in the pages of Ladies' Home Journal that November, just 2 days before the Armistice. A professor at the University of Georgia at the time the war broke out, Michael had taken a leave of absence to volunteer at the New York headquarters of the Young Women's Christian Association, which trained and sponsored workers overseas. Inspired by McCrae's verses, Michael wrote her own poem in response, which she called We Shall Keep Faith. As a sign of this faith and a remembrance of the sacrifice of Flanders Field, Michael vowed to always wear a red poppy. She found an initial batch of fabric blooms for herself and her colleagues at a department store. After the war ended, she returned to the university town of Athens and came up with the idea of making and selling red silk poppies to raise money to support returning veterans. Michael's campaign to create a national symbol for remembrance, a poppy in the colors of the Allied nations' flags entwined around a victory torch, didn't get very far at first. But in mid-1920, she managed to get Georgia's branch of the American Legion, a veterans group, to adopt the poppy minus the torch as its symbol. Soon after that, the National American Legion voted to use the poppy as the official U.S. national emblem of remembrance when its members convened in Cleveland in September 1920. On the opposite side of the Atlantic, a French woman named Anna Guerin had championed the symbolic power of the red poppy from the beginning. Invited to the American Legion Convention to speak about her idea for an inter-allied Poppy Day, Madame Guerin helped convince the Legion members to adopt the poppy as their symbol and to join her by celebrating National Poppy Day in the United States the following May. Back in France, Guerin organized French women, children, and veterans to make and sell artificial poppies as a way to fund the restoration of war-torn France. As Heather Johnson argues in her website devoted to Madame Guerin's work, the French woman may have been the single most significant figure in spreading the symbol of the remembrance poppy through the British Commonwealth countries and other allied nations. Within a year, Guerin brought her campaign to England, where in November 1921 the newly founded Royal British Legion held its first ever poppy appeal, which sold millions of the silk flowers and raised over £106,000, a hefty sum at the time, to go towards finding employment and housing for Great War veterans. The following year, Major George Howson set up the poppy factory in Richmond, England, in which disabled servicemen were employed to make the fabric and paper blooms. Other nations soon followed suit in adopting the poppy as their official symbol of remembrance. Today, nearly a century after World War I ended, actually more than a century, millions of people in the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Belgium, Australia, and New Zealand don the red flowers every November 11th, known as Remembrance Day or Armistice Day, to commemorate the anniversary of the 1918 armistice. According to McNabb, the poppy factory, now located in Richmond, England, and Edinburgh, Scotland, is still the center of poppy production, churning out as many as 45 million poppies made of various materials each year. In the United States, the tradition has developed a little differently. Americans don't typically wear poppies on November 11th, Veterans Day, which honors all living veterans. Instead, they wear the symbolic red flower on Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, to commemorate the sacrifice of so many men and women who have given their lives fighting for their country. In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. I didn't really know any of that. I remember being little and seeing old men selling poppies outside the grocery store, but I never knew why or had any sense of what that was. So I just thought it was interesting and thought you might find it interesting too.
Yeah,
You
well-
have some other things to talk about.
A couple of things. I'll just throw this in here. I wasn't going to plan this, but as a big soccer fan, as you like to call it, if one of the great things about that sport is what it always remembers. If you follow soccer and you follow currently what's going on and see any teams play this weekend and up into next weekend, you'll notice that every football squad will have a special shirt on that has a poppy on it. Currently, they are still taking a knee before the start of the game
Are they really?
to stamp out racism. They are still doing
Wow.
that. And every Premiership team has end racism on one of the shoulders of their sweaters during the game, or
Jerseys to Americans.
So they always remember it. And on today, it would have been 11 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. The whole of England would have come to a standstill for 2 minutes, as it does every year.
Yeah. It's amazing. Do you want to read your other stuff too?
I was looking through this. One of the things about veterans is, how easy it is to forget their suffering. We all thank them for what they do. But this is from the US Department of Veterans Affairs. Substance abuse in veterans. A study of PTSD and substance use problems are strongly related to people who have served in the military, especially since 9/11. More than 2 out of 10 veterans have PTSD. 1 in 3 smoke nicotine heavily. 1 in 4 binge drink, which is more than 4 drinks a day. 34% have an alcohol problem after, I'll come on to that. And 32% have a drug problem, and that's prescription painkillers. And the problem which this goes on to say is it's actually quite alarming. When a veteran's benefits run out and they can't get insurance anymore, they can't get their painkillers, so they turn to alcohol. A lot of veterans listed in this survey use binge drinking, and then a lot of them develop an addiction to alcohol and become alcoholics. Quite a few of them have been told when interviewed, when they're in treatment centre, that they started to drink when their prescription painkillers or their ability to get prescription painkillers ran out. So there is a flip to saying thank you to a veteran and then not following up, really, to see the turmoil that's going inside. And I read this report once, and it was quite sad, because it's easy to see the scars on the outside and the missing limbs. It's what's going on inside that we don't really pay any attention to. I think we're not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
There was during when the war started in Afghanistan. There was a time at MSUM where there were students in my class that said, "Hey, I got called up or I've enlisted." So they stopped their degrees, and some of them came back a couple of years later to finish their degree, and some of them were missing limbs, and they wouldn't take any special treatment because these people are incredibly proud. They don't want to be treated any differently. But that does lead, according to this study, to some of the problem. They won't admit they need help.
Well, the military is all about being tough and
that's it.
Sort of knocking down doors and surviving and thriving. And so there's a disconnect. And certainly we're not saying all veterans are addicts, but it is a special problem inside that population because of the expectation of sort of stiff upper lip that we still have of military people, and I think the inability we have across all of us to sort of acknowledge the mental health challenges that face people who live through trauma. And what is more traumatizing than war? Whether you are on the front line or experiencing it from some other angle. So in the spirit of gratitude for the week, we just again say thank you to all of our veterans.
Yep.
Thanks to the artists who have commemorated all of the battles that have happened throughout history through art. A report does not move you like art does. And the way that we keep these stories alive and present is through the arts. So thanks to the artists who've done it too.
You think of any war memorial, an artist designed that thing. And I've heard people say, do we need them? Of course you do. You need to remember and honour what these people have done for their own countries. I'm not just saying this one. Everyone's, every country has veterans and they fought for something.
We'll end by saying that when Winston Churchill was asked to cut funding for the arts during World War II, his response was, well, then what are we fighting for? And I love that response. And the last thing we need to say is happy birthday to my other brother, Wes. I hope you have a great day. So thank you, everybody who's connected to a veteran. Take some time today. This is not a day off because there are great deals to order online. this is a day off to remember people who made the ultimate sacrifice and who served in ways that many of us never will.
And I
So,
know
thanks.
this country has Memorial Day, but today as well.
Yeah.
If you know someone who's served, who's passed on, if they live in town, go see the grave. I know you probably do that in May, but go and see it today.
Have a great day.
See
We'll
you
see you
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Bye.
Let's